Hello, everyone, and welcome to Aging in Place, the Greater Naperville Area's Family Guide. Our goal is to help this sandwich generation, which is middle-aged adults, typically in their 40s to 60s, who are squeezed by the responsibility of simultaneously supporting their aging parents while also raising their own children. We want to help parents age as gracefully as possible and reduce stress through education and community connection. It takes a village, folks, and there are a lot of great resources and ideas that we try to uncover through expert guests that know the local area very, very well. I am your host, Dan Drews, and with me today is my co-host and sponsor, Brennen Roberts, the owner of Seniors Helping Seniors for the Greater Naperville Area. And we want to thank one of our other supporters, the Naperville Area Chamber of Commerce, who is a great advocate for all businesses that support seniors in the Naperville area. Brennen, good to see you again. Tell us a little bit about what's going on with Seniors Helping Seniors.
Yeah, well, it's glad to be here. Obviously, this is a great educational platform for us. You know, we help seniors sort of age gracefully as possible and live independently as long as they want. And we do it through providing, home care services such as transportation, companionship, personal care, and we help families with memory and Alzheimer's issues all the time. So this is a great topic. Many of our caregivers are very mature, often seniors themselves, who have helped care for family members, and that kind of brought us into the fold. So this is obviously a super relevant topic for us, and we're glad to be here to learn more and help educate people.
Well, Brennan, thank you again for sponsoring such a great show. We really appreciate it. And folks, our show today is going to focus on the tragic diseases of Alzheimer's and dementia and how to navigate this with our loved ones. And in order to help us with that, we have two fantastic leaders from the Alzheimer's Association. Hadi Finerty is the Director of Community Engagement for the Alzheimer's Association Illinois chapter based in the greater Chicago area. She has spent over a decade providing vital education on dementia, brain health, and caregiving resources to the local community. Locally, Finerty is heavily involved in outreach and educational events. She regularly hosts seminars such as Healthy Living for Brain and Body and discussions on new treatment trials at venues like Hinsdale Public Library, on regional broadcasts like WGN Radio, and now our show. Tom Heneghan is the senior walk manager for DuPage. He participated in his first walk a few years ago in honor of his friend's mom who was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. He also lost his grandmother to dementia, seeing firsthand and from afar what Alzheimer's and dementia havoc has made on the impact on him. He's proud to be a part of this organization and to work together so that one day we will have a world without Alzheimer's and dementia. Thank you both for joining us today. We can't thank you enough for sharing your information on this terrible disease that affects so many people. And we really appreciate having you here today, too. So with that being said, why don't we kind of start big picture with Alzheimer's in general and kind of talk to us about the disease, and then we'll just drill down on all the ways that your organization helps folks with it.
Okay. So you can see the Alzheimer's Association, oftentimes people don't really know what we do. And our main focus is really driving that global research. So what is that? That's coming up actually July 12th is the Alzheimer's Association International Conference. And this year it's held in London. So every year it brings thousands of scientists, researchers, students to this site, and every year it changes. And everybody has a passion, right? They're here to find some kind of prevention, treatment, hopefully one day a cure to this disease. So it's a phenomenal place to be. The energy is very high. So when we talk about that, we are talking about that global research front. And then also really focusing on that early detection, right? Because as people get older, and we'll talk about that I'm sure later, we don't always remember everything. So what is things to be concerned about, and really focusing on if you're starting to forget, it's okay. Talk to your doctor about it. It might not be Alzheimer's or dementia. And then our quality care and support. So what that really means is our education programs in the community, our support groups, our 1-800 helpline. Those are all of the things that we focus on to bring to the community as our quality care and support. And then, of course, my favorite is our vision, which is a world without Alzheimer's and other dementias, because wouldn't that be wonderful when we do see our first survivor holding up that white flower at our walk to end Alzheimer's?
Yeah.
That would be amazing. I mean, and Tom, in our intro, we kind of talked about your personal connection to this disease. Can you talk a little bit more about that and how this hits home for you personally?
Yeah, for sure. So going to my first walk a few years ago was actually in McHenry County, and my friend's mom, she has since passed, but she had a early onset, and she was, a teacher, full of life, and just saw the devastation of that disease. And then my own grandmother, she is from Ireland, and her first language is not English. And towards the end of her life, she didn't know English, and I don't know Irish that well. So we had the same question, "Hi, how are you?" And eventually, she didn't know who I was. But right now, is actually my dad. It was diagnosed with vascular dementia. So now we're like battling that on the home front. Luckily, my mom was a caretaker for a while, so she, like to your point, Brennen, like very experienced in bringing in that knowledge. But now we're dealing with it with my dad and going to his appointments and learning a lot about that. So we see the devastation firsthand, and at this point, almost everyone is touched in a certain way by the disease. And the best part about what we do in the community that we built is that we're all able to help each other and share our experience and knowledge. And it's great seeing that. I see it from the volunteers sharing with amongst each other, and then just like even us at the home office and at the local office here in Lisle talking about it.
Yeah, I think it's so important to have like a peer community when you're going through that, either helping a family member or even people at early stages of the disease, to know they're not alone. There are things that other people experience, and just getting that support going through it. So I think that's a great resource for it. So I also appreciate you guys stopping by before your trip to London here, I assume. I assume you're going to be.
Oh, man.
I wish.
We tried, but we're denied.
Well, let's talk a little bit about kind of the disease overall and Alzheimer's and dementia, and are they same? Kind of talk to us a little bit about maybe the similarities or differences kind of between the two.
Yeah. So the best way is, I like to say it's like an umbrella term, right? We have dementia, and underneath it is our list of symptoms. And those symptoms, and we'll see a little bit more about that, is more like our, when people are thinking about, okay, what am I experiencing? It could be something like our navigation, right? Someone who's driven to the same place for many, many years, one day forgets how to go there. Or, recently learned information where you're telling them something and then you're noticing 5 minutes later you're repeating yourself, and then 20 minutes later you're repeating yourself. That recently learned that short-term memory starts to go away. Or it could be someone that loves to, plan something, and they have 1,000 to-do lists, and now they're not checking those items off their to-do list. Those are kind of, the dementia symptoms. There's so many. But I like to say those are the common things that we start to notice. Alzheimer's is the most common form of dementia. So 60 to 80% of cases is Alzheimer's disease. Well, you'll notice there's common ones too, like, we'll see vascular dementia. So for some individuals, when we always say what's good for the heart is also good for the brain. And when that blood flow stops, right, that 20 to 25% of oxygen flow to the brain, someone has a stroke. Some people, they don't come out of that, what they say brain fog. It moves into those dementia-like symptoms. And, Lewy body dementia, when Robin Williams passed away, they actually announced he had Lewy body dementia as well. Here, oftentimes it's kind of associated with Parkinson's disease. So we'll see people that are shaking, shuffling, maybe they're having hallucinations. And then the last one is frontal temporal dementia. We see these in people in their late 40s, early 50s. We all know Bruce Willis is currently living with this disease right now. And it's more mood than their memory. So here we're going to notice that they're isolating quickly. They become nonverbal quickly. I think the tricky thing with Alzheimer's is every person is different. So, what might be for, Tom's dad might have not been what maybe my grandma experienced on her journey. So it's hard to kind of pinpoint a lot of that. But I just say dementia is our overall symptoms.
Yeah, it's hard. We always talk about like you're looking for changes in behavior,
Yeah.
and it could be something as simple as a UTI, as
Yes.
health, and
Yeah.
it's just doctor's fix, which can get serious with doctor's fix and stuff, but it could be something harder. I think what's hard a lot of times is for family members maybe distance and they only see
Yeah.
mom and dad 2 or 3 times a year. And they're like, okay, I'm talking on the phone, I'm kind of repeating the same stories, and they're just not picking that up.
Yeah.
And then we find a lot of times, okay, holidays, they come and spend an extended, they're like, oh my gosh, this is an issue here.
Or, I like to say too, it's like when you do have that family member that comes, it's like taking the car to the mechanic. Your loved one could be having the best day and they're thinking, well, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't see any of these symptoms that you're describing. And then the next day, they're not having the best day. But yeah, a lot of that, like the urinary tract infections, those play a key role too.
Yeah.
Hadi, tell me a little bit. So your personal experience kind of related to your grandmother, if I have that right. What was that experience like for you, or how does this mission kind of become personal for you, kind of based on that experience you had?
Well, we were my grandmother's caregiver. So she was on this journey for 15 years.
Wow, 15.
Yeah. The first 10 years, her and my grandpa lived in Chicago. So we're a Greek family. We're big. Every Sunday we would have Greek family dinners. And we would see some of the changes. But for us, the most pronounced change, it was Easter. And every Easter she used to make these butter cookies. And I remember she always would put it in cellophane wrap. So we would unwrap everything, put it on the kitchen island. And my mom and I both looked at each other like, something's not right. And they're basically a pile of mush. And when my mom and I both looked at each other, she saw us and she said, I don't remember how to make these anymore. And we're thinking,
goodness. Something she probably made forever.
With probably not even a recipe. We're like, something is not right. So we started paying more attention. And then my grandpa started saying, I don't want to tell you everything that's happening, because he was scared we would take her. So my grandpa ended up passing, and the last 5 years of her journey, she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So the traumatic event of like my grandpa passing really increased and ignited stuff in her brain. So she lived with us. At the time, I lived at home, so we took care of her. We were her caregivers. It was the most rewarding experience. Tough. It's not, I think I cried a lot, laughed a lot, but I would never take back that time.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. That when families can take care of their own, obviously we see a lot of times when maybe they don't have a family around, or they're local. And as we talk about the sandwich generation, you've got kids, you've got busy schedules, you got careers. Like, we've got a family right now, we're helping out, and the grandfather's there, but the son has to work the whole day, so he's at meetings, and the kids got activities, and we're just providing the family some help. We try to say it's sometimes it can be I don't want to say it's not a burden. People don't see it as a burden, right? But it's a lot, and it takes a lot out of the caregiver. So we like to say, like, when we come out and help families, we want to help people be more, stay a daughter, granddaughter first, and not caregiver second, if you can.
Yeah.
So
it definitely changes the family dynamics. When my grandma was diagnosed, my mom was only 37.
Oh wow. Yeah.
And it changed. She had kids in college, and
it's a tough thing for a kid when you flip that dynamic where all of a sudden you have to take care of your parents.
Yeah.
Telling them what to do.
It's like emotionally, it's tough to deal with. You're like, wait a second, like, this is not the same role I've had my whole life, and I need to do this. I think there's always an adjustment period for that.
I'm curious on, the fact that my wife's also from a big Greek family. Her grandmother also developed Alzheimer's, dementia. And one of the things they had to kind of adjust with her is that my wife's father, her son, passed away, before she passed away, right? And she would keep asking about him. And then they would tell about his passing, and she would continue to relive that. So they came to the point where they're just like, oh, he's at the grocery store. Like, I'm wondering, did you have to navigate things like that ever too, and make a decision?
Yes.
It might not be the truth, but it kind of hinges on their happiness.
I'm kind of laughing when you're saying that, because that was exactly our story. My grandma would always ask, when is your grandpa coming? I want to go home.
Mm.
Home to her some days was where they lived in Chicago. Some days is where she grew up when she lived in Greece. I want to go home. We didn't know. Early on, we're like, well, he passed. He's not coming home.
Mhm.
And then she grieved him. She'd be very upset. She'd be like pulling her hair. And then by coincidence, that week, my mom actually had an appointment with a neurologist. And he's like, provide her a therapeutic fib. My mom's like, well, I don't know if I could lie to her. And he's like, you need to, because what's causing her anxiety, you've moved on from it. She's stuck in this now.
Ah,
So
yeah.
the next time she asked, my mom said, you know what, he'll be back. And she's like, okay, I just need to make sure everything is locked up in our house. And then I remember one day, and we'd always say the same thing. He's going to Sam's Club. They loved going to Sam's. When he gets back, you'll be able to go.
Yeah.
And one day, out of nowhere, she was call him on the phone for me. And I'm like, I remember I was sweating. I'm like, what do I do? I called one of my uncles, and I'm like, she's asking for him. So he talked to her. She thought it was my grandpa, and she said, okay, he's going to be here in 10 minutes. You know, passage of time means nothing to someone with this disease.
Yeah.
So 10 minutes meant she moved on. Is it 10 minutes yet? I'm like, we're almost there. And
Yeah.
then, you know, we just kind of went over it, and then we moved on to something else.
Yeah,
We
I
say
can see that.
you can't bring them to you. You got to go to where they're
Yes.
at,
Right.
you know,
Right.
and kind of live in the moment.
Yeah.
With them, you know. So, I like, what'd you say that? It was like thoughtful fibbing, or what was the
Therapeutic
Therapeutic
Yeah,
fibbing.
that's a
That's
good
a good-
phrase.
Yeah, I
But
had
it
heard
makes
that
sense,
before.
right?
It
You don't have
does.
to relive the trauma.
Mhm.
Yeah.
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 Let's talk about the disease itself too. We've talked a little bit about some of the symptoms with both of your loved ones. You talked about too. Is there anything else about the disease that you think the listeners should know about?
I do like to point out it's a gradual disease. It worsens over time. People do pass away from this disease. I think it's a misconception. People don't think they do. And yes, they can pass away from another ailment, but right now it's the 7th leading cause of death in the United States.
Wow.
So people do pass. The thing that I think people struggle with is there's no timeline, right? So we have phases where they go through early, or we like to say, middle and late stages. There's no time. No one can tell you how long they're going to be in each stage for. People, again, that whole individual, they progress at their own time. So we might see people living in the early stages for quite some time, or they might pass through it quickly and now they're in the middle to late stages. So I always like to point that out because I don't think people really know about that. And you might also hear it as like mild, moderate, and severe stages. It just depends on how people are describing the stages.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And to Hadi's point too, she mentioned like a lot of times they'll be having a few bad days in a row and they have a couple good days in a row, but that doesn't mean that they're getting better or anything. It's just that's the way it happens.
Yeah.
And sometimes people just need to keep that in mind. Like it's not a linear progression. It's going to be ups and downs throughout the whole process, but it will eventually start getting more and more severe.
Yeah. There's no good answer for what to expect
Exactly.
Right.
tomorrow, next week, next
Right.
month. Like,
Well, I tell you what, the Alzheimer's Association has done a ton of work on facts and figures and different statistics around this disease. This is a great infographic. Where do you want to start with this, or things that you think are maybe not commonly known?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is the over 7 million Americans right now in the United States that are living with Alzheimer's. And one of the things I like I'm sure, Tom, I'm speaking for you, you also like, is 3 out of 4, and this is a new statistics we haven't seen, is Americans say lifestyle is really important for them, right? Like, what can they do? They know that.
Mm-hmm.
46% you're going to see they know it, but maybe they're not really partaking in those lifestyle habits, but they know that benefits them. And we saw a huge shift in our facts and figures because now we're moving more into like brain health and what everybody can do. So I think for myself, that's one of my things that people are like, wow, there are things that we can do today, and there are. But we'll see the 1 in 3 older adults, when I talk about that, when I'm in community, you see people like look around like 1 in 3
Mhm.
dies
which
from this.
there's
Right.
4 of us in this room, which
Exactly.
one
Right.
Yep.
it's going to be. So
Right.
Well, that makes sense. Like the physical health, like Brennen, I know you talked about. You've got some clients with seniors helping seniors that some of your caregivers just help them go on walks and try and keep up that physical activity.
Oh yeah. I mean, we've got a client that I mean, she's early stage dementia, and still able to live in independent living, but she loves walking. So like we actually go out, and the walks that they do at the senior center are like around the building. She's like, no, I want to go crank out a 3-mile walk.
Right.
So we have caregivers that go up and just go for walks with her, which is a pretty nice
awesome.
gig. But and that's obviously good for her physical health. It's good for her brain health.
Yep.
She's outdoors. She's walking with a companion. So it's just makes for her. She has much better days when she's able to get out and walk and stuff like that. So I had a question. I don't know if it's in the stats. I don't know the answer, but do you have stats on like the ages when people get diagnosed, and at what ages, how young do people need to kind of be on the lookout for? And
typically you develop symptoms on average about 20 years before they start showing up.
Really?
So if you see this here with 1 in 3 of those over 65, that means by 45 that you might start developing some of the symptoms, but it doesn't really progress to a noticeable point. But it's like we talked about with Alzheimer's in particular, there's plaques on the brain. That's what that disease state is. With vascular, it's a shrinking of the blood vessels, less blood flow. So like your neural link connections are going to be shrinking. So it's like it's going to look different for everybody else. However, it's really scary to think it's like your 40s and your 50s is when you need to be making these lifestyle changes we'll talk more about that will help slow down the progression, not prevent it, but slow down the progression of the disease. But that's typically on the average range of when we start seeing that from the data.
That's important, because I think most people think about like grandparents, and sound like your friend's mother.
She was young onset.
Was pretty young, 50s, so it's not as uncommon as you would think for it to impact people that are, not that senior, I guess.
Yep. When we talk about surprising stats, the one right in the middle of the screen too, it kills more than breast cancer and prostate cancer combined. I mean, that blows my mind, because you don't think of it in that type of magnitude. Right. When someone dies from Alzheimer's, is it just a deterioration of their cognitive functions, or kind of help me understand what they end up passing away from?
And that's exactly it. Okay. So in the late stages, most are nonverbal. They'll forget how to swallow. They'll forget how to chew. Their body is starting to shut down. The brain is starting to shut down. So we'll see most of them at that point are either bedridden, wheelchair bound. There's not a lot of, I guess, quality of life really for the individual at that point.
Yeah, we've had live-in caregivers before that are kind of had the benefit of helping a family for multi years, and kind of been there sort of at the very, very end and stuff.
And is there a hereditary aspect to this disease, and what should people in their 40s and 50s be asking their doctors right now in their current checkups if they know it does run in their families?
So if you have a parent or a sibling, your chances are 2 times greater.
Wow.
If you have 2 parents, your chances are 7 times greater. So that, and the young onset, so when we mean young onset, we mean someone diagnosed 65 years or younger, if they carry the gene. So most people, like I always give the reference of that movie Still Alice, right? If you've seen it, she was diagnosed in her early 50s. The child that got the genetic testing done carried the gene, they will develop it. So that's different. We have our deterministic genes, right? And then the family genes, the familial genes is what they call it. So there is a high chance, but you don't necessarily get it. So oftentimes people now with doing like genetic testing and they carry like the APOE4 gene, then they're always like, I'm going to get it. This is it. I'm going to get it. And it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get it.
No.
Just puts you at a higher risk.
Yeah. Well, follow the guidance that you're going to share with us.
Yes.
Bit, right? Exactly. That's where you got to pay special attention to it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, let's take a look a little bit at some of the stats here in Illinois specifically. Again, some great work that you've been doing in Illinois. Where do you want to take us through some of this data that you've been able to compile?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is just the prevalence in Illinois. Over basically 251,000 individuals living with this disease. Again, that is reported, right? Some people just, don't really,
There's still a stigma.
right,
And
don't
they don't
talk
want to
about
talk.
it.
Yeah, they don't
Yeah.
want to admit to it.
Tom, talk a little bit more about that. Talk about, I guess, the stigma that exists and maybe what you would encourage not only those people experiencing the symptoms, but the family members around them as well.
Sure. Yeah, I think a lot of it is just when we go to senior fairs, and I'm sure you guys see it too. It's like people will see our booth, they'll see our name, and they'll immediately shake their head, wave us off. They don't want anything to do with us. And that's, it's upsetting because it's like, honestly, we just have all these resources, but they don't want to admit to the disease because everyone knows it's like you lose your memories, you lose yourself, and then a lot of people feel like they'll be a burden on their family. So it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. And one of the things I recommend the most is when you get to your mid 60s is to do that. You have to set it up with your doctor ahead of time, but there's these 15-minute tests where they do kind of a neuropsych battery where it's to draw the clock, ask some basic math questions. They'll give you 5 words to memorize, tell you a story. What was the plot of the story and what were the 5 words I told you? And then every year when you're doing your checkups, they should be doing that. And that way the doctor can see if there is some, because now we have a baseline where you were at 65 and then at 70, it's like, well, you're pretty much right in the range you should be, or if it's dropping, then we could look at it, because then we get into things where people might have a mild cognitive impairment, which does not mean you will develop Alzheimer's or dementia, but everyone who's ever had Alzheimer's or another dementia did have an MCI at some point. So again, we talk about early early detection is key to treating this disease the best we can and give you the most normalcy. So as a family, it's like I just really encourage, besides the health tips that everything that Hadi's going to get into, is encourage your loved ones when they get to 65 to start doing these tests. And they're just like everything we did in school.
Yeah.
And it's okay. You're not meant to pass them either. It's like if I went with my dad and I was just like, I don't know what the 5 words were. So
Can I write this down?
I was like trying to
That
follow
kind of
along.
defeats the point.
Yeah,
here,
this
right?
was tough. So just a big encouragement on that.
And I think it's interesting too. How do you talk about this too? It's kind of a puzzle piece in the standpoint that you can have dementia, but it's not necessarily Alzheimer's, and there's different, I guess, subcategories of it too. So, Tom, back to your point, like doing these tests will help doctors understand, okay, is it Alzheimer's or is it one of the other types of dementia?
Yeah.
Do I have that right?
Yeah, because there's over 70 different types of dementia.
Oh my gosh.
So it helps
Unbelievable.
some of these tests. I mean, the proper diagnostic process is more than obviously the 5-minute mini mental status. But I always encourage people, like Tom said, talk to your doctor first, and then you can go see someone else, like a neurologist or a geriatric specialist that specializes with Alzheimer's or dementia, because not every doctor does. So that's also important too. But it's important because it's not a 5-minute test. It takes hours. They do start with that mini mental testing, and then they go into more deep dive, steps on how to diagnose.
It's the neuropsych test, and then they still need an MRI to confirm it. And there is blood tests available for early detection, but that's only one piece of the puzzle. Like you might get that blood test that shows that you're carrying, like you have Alzheimer's disease state or whatever it might be, but you still need to go through the MRI process and the neuropsych, and that is a few hours. Or you might have to make multiple appointments because in my dad's case, it was upsetting to him. Even though we warned the person doing the test, he's not going to be too thrilled if we ask him, because some of the questions come off insulting to the person, like, what's a bird? And you're like, I know what a bird is.
Yeah.
But that's how they start ramping it up as they go through the test. But it takes a couple hours. It takes numerous neurologist appointments, and we know there's a shortage of neurologists throughout the U.S. So you could be on a waiting list. So it's like that's why you gotta plan ahead and just be aggressive with advocating for your loved one or yourself.
Yeah, I mean, planning ahead is a common theme in all our discussions here. Don't wait till the last minute when you're in crisis. When it comes to your powers of attorneys, your estates, like knowing your parents' friends, knowing their habits, those kind of things. It's just like it'll save you so much hassle and stress down the road and stuff. So
we talked a little bit about like heart health and just being a healthy person in general, hopefully being one of those things that kind of stave that off. Are there other things that kind of play in dementia? For one of the examples, I've heard like tinnitus or tinnitus, the ringing in the ear can lead to it. Are there any other things that people need to be aware of that can lead into dementia or Alzheimer's?
Yeah, we do have risk factors. Of course, age is the first one, then genetics, then family history, but it's really the main stuff is like a cardiovascular factors. Now they're doing a ton of research on hearing because we're starting to see that, right? Is it selective hearing or can they not hear? Is that why you're repeating yourself? So there's studies going into hearing loss. I don't know if you have anything.
Well, I was going to say the hearing loss too. Like sometimes people withdraw socially, and that usually can speed up the process as well.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so kind of an indirect or a domino effect, if you will.
Yeah. I don't. There's research, I think, in Europe based off of this, just on my own personal experience. But it's still something that there's a lot more to be discovered about it. But yeah, hearing loss and socialization tend to also go hand in hand, and can lead to some of the advances of the disease.
Yeah.
Is there anything else on the Illinois slide here?
I was going to, you were telling us beforehand about just locally. In
Yeah,
DuPage
locally.
County,
So in DuPage County, there's nearly 20,000 people living with the disease.
Wow.
And one of the most impressive things, though, is a lot of the stuff that Hadi talks about is she does all this programming, community education. It's all free.
Mm-hmm.
And what she's been able to do, her and her group of volunteers, last year in 2025, you reached over 3,500 people attended some type of education session program that Hadi and her volunteers put on. We also have care and support, like support groups, and over 230 people participated in those, which is really good, as we talked earlier about the peer-to-peer model, and just like you're talking to people that are going through it at the same time as you, or have already been through it, or maybe you're the mentor to somebody who's new to it. And then, of course, our helpline, we're able to track how many people from DuPage County use the helpline, and it was averaged out to be about one person a day.
Wow.
So it shows that we're both nationwide, but we're also hyper-focused locally.
Yeah.
Thank goodness for your organization for that.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. I mean, even in DuPage County, I think the stats are that, I mean, it's actually the age, like the 65 and over population is actually slightly higher in DuPage County than it is nationally. And I think it's going to be like 23% by 2030 is what it's expected to be. So you think about that, almost 23% of the population is 65 and over, which we...
And then a third of them likely will have dementia.
Yeah. So it's it hits home.
Well, as we're kind of going through this conversation, some of the things we've touched on are some of the warning signs. Why don't you walk us through a little bit on some of the key things that family members should be looking for? I know, Hadi, you kind of talked about that from some personal experience, but this slide kind of illustrates a lot of those warning signs.
The first one is always memory loss that disrupts your daily life. And people are like, well, how would I know? You will know. It's something significant.
The cookies, for example.
The cookies, or you're holding the keys to your car and you're thinking, what am I supposed to do with these keys? Well, most of us know turn your car on. So that's the number one thing. And then, difficulty completing those familiar tasks. Like, again, the cookies, or someone that's, has a budget and all of a sudden they're paying their bills. They're starting to get final notices coming in. And they used to be able to keep track. Now they can't keep track of those monthly bills. A lot of stuff that we see is confusion with time or place. So 60% of individuals that have Alzheimer's or dementia wander. And oftentimes it's because, where does their long-term memory go? I talked about like my grandma, and she always wanted to go home, but we see that, like, I want to go home. When am I going home? The home to them can be anywhere, and there's a goal in mind, like I'm getting there no matter what. And it's just the seasons, right? So we know it's summer now, but they can look outside and not know what the season is, and they're now getting dressed up like it's winter.
Yeah.
I think sometimes too, like the social filter is gone, so now they're starting to talk very loudly about people, and maybe they've never done that before. Even driving, one of the things here is trouble understanding visual images and spatial relationships. I can't tell you how many times I have people tell me one of my number one clues or signs, should say, was all of the dents on my spouse's car or my parents' car. Yeah. Because, they would, I will never forget, I had a lady, and this was very early on when I first started. She said, we would drive to church every Sunday, and I noticed one Sunday that my husband had like 3 new dents on the side of his car. And when I asked him about it, he said, oh, it was the grocery cart at the store. Then the next day, oh, the neighborhood kids always ride their bikes into my car. So they drove to church this Sunday, and she said it was only a 6-mile trip. On the way there, he blew through a stop sign because you can't determine color and contrast with this. He stopped hundreds of feet before a stoplight, and he was driving in between 2 of the lanes. And she said on the way there, he almost took out a mailbox too. So then she's like, I knew in that moment what was really happening. So it's, you'll start to see the spatial images are gone. New words with, new problems with words and speaking. I don't like, this isn't something to joke about, but we all have those moments where like, what was I just going to say? I often do that. And the word eventually comes to us. Here, they're always searching for that word. Or, a lot of times I might be like, oh, this is my hand clock instead of this is my watch. So they're making up, their own vocabulary words. Tom mentioned isolation. We're going to see a lot of that. Maybe, their friends are starting to call them out. So why be embarrassed? I'll just stay home from, going to those social things.
Or you forget, like, I don't want to be in a social setting because I can't remember people's names.
So
it's loud noises.
I'm embarrassed or something bothers me, so I'm not going to go, and then you become isolated, and it becomes it's a rough thing. So your story about like driving, like everybody jokes about like the bad. It's not like it might not just be bad driving. I remember my father was not diagnosed with that before he passed, but I do remember he lived a couple hours away, but got a couple single car accidents. Like thankfully he was okay and he didn't hurt somebody else, but it was one of those things. It's always one of the biggest problems people have is like, how do I take the keys away from mom and dad before they hurt themselves or somebody else, because that is a huge step where they lose their independence.
And of course, I like to point out we all have typical age-related moments, right? Like we've all had those moments. This is going to be pronounced, so people will be like, well, I don't remember where I put my keys. Retrace your steps. You have the ability. If Tom hears me talk about this all the time. There's so many times I'm getting my kids in the car, I'm throwing in my bags for work, and I'm halfway down the block, and I'm thinking, did I shut my garage door?
All the time.
And then I drive, and I drive back around 99% of the time it's shut. So yes, we do have typical age-related moments, but the ones that we saw before, those are the most common ones to really pay attention to.
Well, please tell me there's a little light at the end of the tunnel, right? When we talk about the treatments for Alzheimer's, what can people be doing, and do we have some progressions in medicine that hopefully give us hope?
I know this is your favorite topic.
Well, I love talking about that. I joked with you guys earlier, but it's like, when you're a brilliant doctor, you discover disease, they name it after you. So Dr. Alzheimer is a real person, and he discovered the plaques in the brain back in 1906. The first treatment for any of the symptoms wasn't until 1906, or until 1996. So we went 90 years with no effective treatment at all, other than just putting people in a home or ignoring them, what have you. And since then, we've been developing, not we, but I mean doctors have been developing drugs to help treat the symptoms, but it's not until the last couple of years, and this is where Hadi knows way more than I do, but there's actually now drugs that directly address the disease state. Now, they're not a cure, but what they can do is slow the progression down, and you kind of get to a new normal for a longer period of time with your loved one. And you'll see that they're infusion-based, I believe, right?
Yeah. So there is hope.
Well, when people are trying to grab hold of that hope and really want to take charge of their brain health, talk to us a little bit about other things they should be doing and some coaching you might give them.
Yeah, I like to say it's never too early or too late to adopt any kind of healthy habit. What we're seeing is 45% of dementia cases could be delayed by following a lot of these modifiable risk factors. Here we talk about our 10 healthy habits. The association, we're moving more toward like brain health, right? Like what can people do? All of us in this room, anyone, we don't have to have this disease. And they really are focusing on some of the stuff that we're all doing right now, right? Social engagement we know is so important. People do not do well in isolation. So, being in part of clubs or something to get more active. Diet and nutrition is a key thing. Right now they're focusing on the mind diet, which is like the Mediterranean diet.
Mhm.
Really on dark leafy vegetables, berries.
Like mental activities like puzzles and
Yeah.
things like that. Is that part of the equation?
Yeah, so it is part of it, doing something to challenge your brain.
Mhm.
I always say, if you brush your teeth with your right hand, trick your brain, brush your teeth with your left. I mean, I've had to do that now because I can't really use my right hand. So using my left hand has been challenging, but now I'm used to it, right? I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I think I can switch on
Yep.
and off. Use that left part of your brain. Or, many years ago, people used to take a map to get to their destination.
Yeah.
They're actually saying, like, take a map. Get to your, I mean, I couldn't do it. I'd be in Wisconsin.
Yeah,
but,
yeah,
use a
yeah.
map. But, pick up a new hobby.
New
A lot.
language.
Yeah, a new language.
Playing an instrument.
Formal ongoing learning.
Yep.
Well, this slide you put together, I think,
Yes.
really illustrates it well, right? And even some common sense stuff like the upper left-hand corner, protect your head, right?
Right.
Going out bicycling. I mean, it seems kind of common sense, but I see people riding
Same.
bikes and everything else too. And I'm sure a shot to the brain is not going to be helping
Right.
the situation.
Right,
So,
100%.
Yeah.
So a lot of these things we know, and what they're encouraging, average adults need 2 hours and 30 minutes a week of physical exercise,
Mhm.
with 2 of those days being just like strength and toning. So people look at this and they think, okay, I'm doing pretty good, but it's important to keep building on these healthy habits.
Well, and even when you talked about the brain health recipe and the Mediterranean diet and stuff too, it's fascinating to think about all these things basically swirl into one recipe for trying to
Yeah.
help you live longer and more conscious too. I think
Mhm.
the health monitoring part of this slide, I think, is really kind of interesting too. Why regular checkups and checking in with your doctor and weight monitoring and things like that. That never occurred to me how that can be a big part of the equation
Yeah.
too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oftentimes people get a diagnosis like, oh, you have high cholesterol, and they think, well, I'm not going to do anything about it.
Mhm.
And then they continue on. So we're encouraging people, from the US Pointer study, which was a lifestyle intervention study the association took part of. These were the 4 components that these individuals focused on. And what we saw was the people that were in the structured lifestyle part of the trial, their brains were 1 to 2 years younger than what they really are. So if we had people going in 60 to 79 years old, I had a volunteer, she was 63 when she went in. She's like, my brain is like a 61-year-old at this point.
Yeah.
So it helps.
It's fascinating too. It makes me reflect. There's a documentary, I think it was on Netflix, called like Blue Zones, where
Yeah.
people live longer and stuff too.
Yeah.
And some of the things you
Yes.
touched on were their diet, and then
Mhm.
also their social interaction. There was this, it was either Greece or Italy,
Yep.
that they didn't have senior homes, and the seniors would just live in the house, and that type of interaction continued to kind of fuel their longevity, as they
Mhm.
talked about too. Pretty
Yeah.
amazing.
I mean, sorry, I was just going to say, it's interesting for us, at least. We try to have like active, mature caregivers, and honestly, we try to say that like the caregivers like give as much as they receive,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
part of it is like we have some people. Obviously, you're maybe retired and you want to stay active and engaged, and but just like caring for somebody else is part of
Exactly.
that, and companionship. You're out helping and doing stuff, so they're actually benefiting themselves by helping other people.
Yeah.
It's a nice model.
Yeah, there's research that shows that seniors do better when they take care of their grandkids. So
Mm.
I'm just putting it out there.
Keeps you young at
Keeps
heart.
you young at heart.
I believe it
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Well, I'm constantly amazed too at how technology pieces can kind of help us educate it too. And Alzheimer's Association is no different too. You guys have support features, including an app, it looks like too, in order to help the community with this disease. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so this is my All's journey, and I think the thing that's helpful, yes, it's free, but it helps caregivers. We've all probably heard, how do I get my loved one to take a shower? They're resisting, right? You can go in there and it gives you tips on how to do that, right? Or how do I take the keys away from my loved one? Again, they give you tips. So it connects the individuals with chapter resources and like how to kind of navigate those hard See, look.
Yeah, it's just-
It happens to all of us, right?
I'm looking at Tom.
Yeah, I
Look
know.
at for me,
Yeah.
Tom.
Well, at least you didn't say it in Irish.
Well, I will say what's great about the app too is we'll ask you questions about your loved one, for instance, and it's a sliding scale. So it's like, do they need help? Reminders with showering, like 1 is never, 5 is always, and then helps you kind of realize where they're at
Oh,
approximately. And it's just another extension of our helpline. But for some people, they don't want to call, they don't want to do. It's just very great because I've used it as a way to kind of just get an idea of ballpark where my dad might be, because I'm not a neurologist, I'm not that smart. So this really helps me figure this out, and it just gives me a better sense of like how you said, tips, hints,
Yeah.
or what to expect.
A kind of a cursory assessment, if you will.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, you talk about help, Tom. This is right in your wheelhouse here.
Yeah.
The Walk to End Alzheimer's is one of the big initiatives of the organization. Talk to us about that and how people can, what it is, and how people can get
Sure.
involved. Yeah.
So one of the best things about Walk, there's walks throughout this nation. There's over 600 walks. The Walk to End Alzheimer's is the second biggest peer-to-peer fundraiser in the nation. So what's really cool about that is we get all these people throughout the U.S. participating, but then we do it here locally in DuPage. We do it at North Central College football stadium. What's also amazing, just like all of our education, our app, our helpline, it's actually free to sign up. So that's what we do. If you want to earn incentives, you want to get I see you have an Awala. If you wanted an Awala, there's incentives throughout the season. If you raise a certain amount of money in this time period, you can get it. You'll get your shirt or other incentives. There's a lot of ways that we encourage people to fundraise. But again, it's not required. But what's great is it's free and it's a community. Over 1,400 people come out, and there's the people like Hadi and her volunteers are there with the care and support information, with the program information. We have a caregivers tent in which we recognize the caregivers. We have the champions, like our best fundraisers get like a little special recognition, the top teams. We have sponsors there, but really a lot of people love the flower ceremony, which is our pinwheel flowers. Each color represents your relationship to the disease. And we have a little bit of a program that goes along with that. And you'll see towards the end of the program, every single person is holding up their flower. That means every single person there can relate to each other in some way, shape, or form. And you have this community that you didn't realize was in your own backyard. And it's a very powerful moment. Yet the walk is a component of it, but it's not a big, long walk. It's meant for all ages, abilities. And what's great about the walk is you go to here in DuPage or somewhere else, they all look approximately the same. They have their local flavor. Like we usually have the marching band drum line send us off, the cheerleaders cheering people on the way to the route and on their way back from the route. And it's a great family affair. We have an area for the kids to go have fun and hang out. And I just think overall it builds this community. And oftentimes when people are looking for help and resources, the walk's the first time they realize everything that Alzheimer's Association does, because they think they're just coming to a walk or a 5K, and they don't realize that there's a lot more to it than just that. There's all these resources right here, right there for you, and that's when they learn about what we can do to help.
And when's the DuPage event coming up?
It's October 4th. It's Sunday. It's going to be another hopefully beautiful day, but it's right along the riverfront. You walk out of the football stadium, riverfront neighborhoods, and come back around, and hopefully we'll have some cool things that I haven't confirmed yet, but we'll usually do a little local flavor to make it kind of fun.
Some of
That's
it,
great. And we've got the QR code
Yes.
here if people need
Yep.
to get some more information.
Yes,
on
you
it.
can scan the QR code and it will bring you to our website. My contact information is there. If you're interested in stuff that Hadi offers, you can obviously contact me as well, because I work hand in hand with Hadi.
Yeah, and we'll put the link to it in
Yeah.
the description of the video. But
Great.
yeah, it's great. I love that. So a lot of times these walks and stuff, people think they're intimidating or challenging, but it's so inclusive.
Yes.
Mhm.
Again, you see that you're not alone. There's a whole community there, and there's great organizations like you guys
As we
helping
said,
out.
it takes a village.
It takes
right?
a village.
Well,
so-
on that note, too, when you talk about helping, too, you guys have a whole system and network to try and help folks, too. Why don't you walk us through this a little bit? If it's either people experiencing problems or the family members, what's the best way they can reach out for help?
I always direct them to our 24-hour helpline. It's master level clinicians. They're there. They can help, of course, with information and referral, but they can also help within those moment needs too, right? I'm starting to see some warning signs. What are my next steps? And people that also are seeing the signs in themselves, they can call. They can navigate, maybe, this should be your next step when you talk to your doctor, ask the list of questions. Or how do you talk to your loved one about, hey, I'm starting to notice that you have these symptoms or these signs. So our 24-hour helpline, and the number there is 800-272-3900. And then, of course, we've talked about, but we have programs in the community. So yes, we have brain health programs, but we also have programs for caregivers too. And then we have support groups in DuPage County as well to really help the community, so that they don't feel like they're by themselves.
Yeah, I think a lot of when we talked with Courtney at AARP a few years ago, a lot of people always think of it as this anonymous national organization, and they don't realize how much people are doing at the local level to help people on the ground and stuff. So that's great.
And this is all free. And I think to really realize there's no obligation to do anything, but it's free. So why not take advantage of something that costs you nothing but your time?
Yeah, and if you have the means,
Donate.
participate in the walk, donate. If you can't make it, donate. So it can be free for everyone. So.
Well, Tom and Hadi, thank you so much for joining us too. We've covered a ton of topics here too. Brennen, thanks for your sponsorship for this topic as well. I know your team, and your caregivers specialize in a lot of this caregiving service too for folks that are afflicted by this terrible disease.
Yeah, just families. They're not alone. There's resources out there. Part of the reason we sponsor this is so people are aware of what's out there and available to them, because they just don't know. So it's great. And I was just thinking about it as you guys were talking about the vision. It's not often people that have their job is to put themselves out of a job, really. So hopefully you'll achieve that vision, and then you'll be like, oh, okay, what do I turn my talents to next, kind of thing. But I love it. Thank you for everything you guys do.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
great. Thank you.
And thank you again for taking the time today and help our efforts to find ways to assist seniors to age in place in their golden years. Brennen, as always, we appreciate you and Seniors Helping Seniors as their sponsorship of this program on the Naperville Area Guide. We look forward to all of our viewers joining us next time for our next fantastic guest. And look for more of our content. Check us out on Facebook and our YouTube page at Seniors Helping Seniors Greater Naperville. Until then, folks, remember, it takes a village, so do your part in the village. And thank you for joining us.